everyone, and welcome to Social with the Side of Justice, a multi-episode series where we talk about the various topics centered around the importance of social justice. This episode will be hosted by me, Laura Leonel,
Lexia Morales,
and Jennifer Ariza.
On today's episode, we will be sitting down with actress Kim Berrios Lynn. Kim is an actress, writer, producer, and artist. You might recognize her from the HBO series Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, Disney's Better Nate Than Never, or NBC's New Amsterdam.
During our conversation with Kim, we will be discussing her journey to success as well as her experience as a biracial woman in a mainly white industry.
We are so excited for you to join us today, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Social with the Side of Justice is sponsored by Long Branch Public Schools Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
First of all, we just wanted to start out by saying thank you for coming and taking the time to come to SOSJ to talk to us. And we're very excited for you to be here today. So my first question is, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Edison, New Jersey.
Ooh.
Not too far from here. Yeah.
Okay, how would you describe your family and upbringing?
I think I had I grew up in a middle class family. We had enough to get by, my mom always said that she always wanted to be an artist when she was a child, and she would somehow find a way to make sure that we would have any kind of lessons that we wanted. So I had all types of lessons: dance, tap, ballet, all that, piano. My family couldn't always afford it, but somehow they figured it out. So I had an active family life for sure.
I always wanted to do dance classes.
You could start right now.
Okay, so being part Puerto Rican and part Taiwanese, did you ever struggle with your identity growing up?
Yes. I love that this is the school for social justice. I love that you're talking about DEI right now. Like, none of that. I don't remember any of those conversations happening when I was younger. Right. I don't remember anybody else who was Puerto Rican and Taiwanese other than my brother, right? So I remember, depending on what grade I was in and what circles I was among, I was trying to acclimate to that group.
Right.
So I spent some time with, blonde hair, and like just trying to look a certain way. And I'm all about self-expression and dyeing hair and all that, but I was doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
So, it wasn't until I would say until I was an adult that I was really comfortable and proud of where I came from. So
how would you describe the high schools that you've attended? Is it diverse?
Yeah. The high school, I attended one high school, very diverse, very, very diverse. There was a big, Latinx community, Asian community, white, black. There was a very nice mix.
So kind of like Long Branch.
Yeah,
Long Branch is very diverse.
Yeah.
We're all like
looking at it.
Yes,
yeah.
Right. So we'll let's see. So did you ever feel like you were treated differently at any point during school, within like being like younger or just like getting older and being in high school? Were you ever treated differently or treated like an outcast?
Yeah, I don't know how much is my internal feelings about myself versus the way that I was actually being treated, but I certainly felt that way growing up. And like as mentioned, I lived in a very diverse area, so maybe I didn't have a reason to feel that way. But what I will say is that when I got to college, it was the school that I went to Rutgers University, which was also fairly diverse, but the circles that I were with were mostly whitewashed, right? And for the first time ever, for example, I was referred to as the Chinese girl, and it was so foreign to me that I was reduced to half of myself, and also the way that I was referred to, it felt derogatory.
Right.
And so for the first time, I was actually specifically called out in that way, and I had a very interesting identity crisis throughout college, just trying to live in my own skin and understand how I was being viewed to this new group of people. That was an adjustment.
So how do you think your experiences during high school and college, like how did it shape you into the person you are today?
I think I needed to feel all of that discomfort to be where I am today, because I am so proud I think it's the coolest that I got to grow up with both of these cultures and to have an appreciation for other people's cultures, to also be able to spot when, you know, when you know, a younger child or a younger cousin or feels uncomfortable in their skin, I can spot it right away because I felt it. So I think it certainly shaped where I am today to feel proud and to advocate for.
So being Puerto Rican and Taiwanese, I've heard that you've created a nickname.
Yeah. A Taiwarican. My mom actually, I can't claim that my mom made that up.
Your mom did? Oh,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I think it's like very cool. You don't hear that, like Taiwarican. Like I feel like it's best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's also a little bit of a tongue twister too.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to say.
Oh.
So how'd you get involved in acting?
Okay, so I started dancing when I was 3. And so being on the stage was something that was something that I loved. I was very shy, super shy, except when I was with my cousins, and that's when we were all ourselves, a bunch of comedians. I was super shy, so I experienced for the first time being on a stage, and even in dance classes, the ability to emote through the arts. And so I always knew I was going to do something on the stage because there's something that connected to me, to my solar plexus, that was undeniable.
It was meant to be.
Exactly.
Right.
And I couldn't articulate it yet, but I was like, there's something happening and bubbling. This is where I'm supposed to be. I don't know why or what it means. And so when I started to have the opportunities as like, I think I played Mary in a church play. I was like, oh, I made it. Like, I loved it so much. And then I joined the drama club in middle school, and I was just among theater kids, which are like the coolest, I think, objectively. Theater kids are cool. And I started doing commercials around that age as well. That's how I got into acting. I didn't stay in it because, you know, my parents eventually were like, that's cool, now what are you going to do with the rest of your life type of thing, which is understandable. I'm first generation, and they worked so hard to get me where I am, to, you know, where I was. So it was more of a hobby, but I knew it was more than that.
So last podcast, we interviewed your cousin Bobby, and he mentioned how he got into acting by auditioning with you. So we just wanted to hear like your perspective on that audition.
Yeah.
How
Oh
you
man, I love Bobby. So as you all know, he was off to law school. He was on his way to law school, and I was working in fashion. So the way I got there, and I'll say it real quick, is I went to school for anthropology at Rutgers just because I was trying to find a major. In my heart, I was like, I'm an actor. I don't know how, and I did some acting on the side or in an improv group and whatever. But I did anthropology. Then I get out, and I'm like, what do I do with this? And I ended up working for a mortgage company, and then I went to Parsons for fashion marketing because I figured I could be creative and then work in the city and then secretly audition on the side. But that never happened because fashion was all encompassing. So I was working in the fashion industry. And it's a type of industry that's just like the industry I'm in now, where you have to love it. You have to love it because you work so hard, and at the beginning you don't get paid much. So I was around these people who would die-hard fashionistas, and I was like, I'd have a conversation with people, and I'd be like Googling the names they were talking about. I just felt like a fake, right? In my heart, and I knew I was an actor. So every password I'd have, when you have to change it, it was like actor 1. It's like, change your password. I was like, actor 2, and like it was my secret. Like, I know I'm an actor, and so I was having conversations with Bobby. He had also done the same thing I did while in college. He took an elective in acting class. And he said, I don't know, cuz there's something that I'm feeling, right? And I said, me too. And he started told me about the actor studio. I went home and Googled it, and I found out they had an MFA program. And there was some voice, that same voice that told me when I was on stage as a dancer, this is what you're supposed to do. The voice said, just go do it.
Right.
It sounded like that. It was like, just go do it.
Right.
So I couldn't ignore it. And when I told my cousin that, he's like, cuz, just do it. And I was like, all right. So, and I asked him to audition with me. I don't know who else I would ask. I didn't know any actors, you know. And so we did this really beautiful piece together. And even the audition itself was life-changing, just the environment. And
The school bell.
after I auditioned, they told me right after the audition that I had gotten in. And then they asked him to audition.
How did you feel when you at that moment, like you're like, oh, I got in, like that's crazy?
I felt like everything made sense. as crazy as it was, I was going to have to go tell my parents that I'm going to quit my job. I was going to have to tell, I had met my partner, my now husband at the time. I was going to have to tell him, hey, you thought you had someone with like this stable job, but I'm quitting.
Surprise!
I'm out. And I knew I had to tell all these people these things, but in my soul, I knew it was the right thing, and that it was going to be hard, and that I had no idea what was up ahead. And I remember my cousin and I were sitting on the N train heading back into Astoria, or Long Island City, and we were just staring at each other like this is the beginning of the rest of our lives. And he's like, I'm not going to law school.
Right. So I think a question that it might be hard to answer, but who inspires you? Like, who truly makes you want to do the things that you do?
I'm going to cry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My grandmother, we called her Mama. She was an artist. She was a writer and a poet, and she had some of her music on the radio. And she didn't have the means like I do to go and pursue it all the way, but it's still with what she could. She did what she could with what she had. Right. She still found a lot of success. I feel like a lot of the really important matriarchs within my life that I've lost are the ones that inspire me. My other grandmother inspires me as well. She just had a heart of gold, and she loved singing. And then my mother-in-law, who I recently lost, was my biggest fan. And when I was doing indie theater to audiences of a quarter of you, not even kidding, I would like look out and there's like 2 people in the crowd. Right. She treated me like it was like the biggest thing in the world. Amazing. And then as I continued to climb, she was still treating it the same way. And so I would say those women, and then also all of you, like the children, you're not children, you're all adults. Okay.
So grown.
But like, the youth who I can see myself in, who I used to be. And even my daughter, who I think is our budding artist in the family. That's my inspiration.
That's beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Of course.
So we're going to be just taking a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be diving deeper into Kim's experiences in the film industry.
Welcome back to Social with a Side of Justice. Again, we are here today with famous actress Kim Berrios Lynn. And my first question for you is, growing up, what were your favorite shows, and were any of the characters like you in regards to like ethnicity, your ethnicity?
Yeah. So my parents were super strict. So I wasn't allowed to watch much TV until it was TGIF. Do you even know what that is?
No.
No idea.
I'm like 900 years old.
No.
So it was on every Friday, and I don't remember, it was like network TV. They would have these like family shows, and I would watch those. I think Boy Meets World was on it. I think there was.
I love that
love
show.
that.
You probably
Also
watched
the
the spin-off now.
Yeah, the spin-off.
I watched
Boy Meets
the
World.
original, the OG.
I watched the original. Don't worry.
You did. It was so
Yes.
good. It was so good, right?
Corey and Topanga, amazing.
Yeah.
Cutest couple.
And, I watched those types of shows, and my favorite was Sister Sister. And that's why I really like this question. I think it was my favorite because they looked the most like me, right? Mm-hmm. I certainly wasn't going to find like a Puerto Rican Taiwanese show or person or actress on, but like I felt like they looked the most like me. And I think that's why it resonated the most with me. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Do you believe that there is enough representation of Latino and Asian actors such as yourself in the film industry?
I do not. An example is like the executives or the big companies were afraid to even do Crazy Rich Asians, for example. And then once the creator pushed for it and said, I'm also going to have a huge say in the casting, and this is who I want. We don't need what you're saying that we need, which is a whitewashed cast. We don't need that. And I promise the box office will follow. And the box office exploded, because they didn't need that. And it's until like For example, one of my favorite actors is Oscar Isaac, and his real name is Oscar Hernandez, I believe, right? So like and until we really get to see our stories. Also, I want to see more of the stories in the history books in my history classes that I didn't get to see. Like our, the people who were, Latinx and indigenous and who fought in the Revolutionary War that we didn't even learn about. I want to see all those stories because I wonder how I would have felt as a child growing up if I would have been more comfortable in my skin, if I would have seen heroes that looked like me. So no, I think we're getting there, but we're not even close.
I
totally
agree
understand.
with that. Yeah.
Were you ever typecasted, and if so, how did it make you feel?
Yeah, and I don't know that I ever was casted in one of these auditions that I got, but I certainly I've done a lot of auditions where, it's like, she's this person with an accent, and, the accent didn't belong to me, but to be quite honest, I didn't book those roles because I wasn't being authentic, right? And so that's why I learned. I see way less of those coming in, thankfully, because there's been a shift in the industry where that's just not okay to do. But if I ever get those roles, I just show up as myself. And it's like I don't think she has an accent unless there's like an actual reason, unless there's a reason and it helps the story. I just show up as myself.
Were you ever told to turn down or turn up the Hispanic or Taiwanese part of your identity?
No, but I think I've told myself, and I think that's something that I will work hard to not do anymore. There may be some roles that I might revisit. Even in my undergrad, I did a play for my thesis that I thought went really well. It was called Roger and Vanessa, and I really leaned into my character Vanessa being from the Bronx, and I had a way of speaking or whatever, and I think that maybe I would if I were to do it again, I would do my version of that, which is I don't think I had to speak in a certain way, right? I could sound like I'm from the Bronx, but I didn't have to lean into it that far, Yeah. So I think it's just things that I've told myself, and there's probably legal ramifications for people now to to be like really lean into they can't say it, but I think that I've said it to myself.
Of course. How do you, as an actor, help in breaking these stereotypes? Like, what are your methods that you use?
I think I touched on it just a tiny bit before, but I just show up as myself now, unless there's some reason that the character has to be a certain thing, that then I just show up as myself. And if something doesn't feel right, I say it. I was recently over the pandemic. Actually, I was in. I did a reading for this theater company that was in Hong Kong. So it was all virtual. There's lots of different people, and there were in the rehearsal process. There was something that had happened to one of the other actors that I did not like, and so I called a meeting with the directors, and I said I can't stand for this, and I say things now because one thing I'll say there was a lot of things I did when I was all your age that I kept my mouth shut. Because I didn't believe in my voice. So whether it be about somebody saying something derogatory about me, or one of my friends, or something because of anything that has to do with ethnicity or anything really in general, I still relive those moments in my shower as an adult about what I would have said, right? Because if I had a voice, the things I would have said, So now you cannot shut me up.
That's amazing. I actually have a question for you. So, do you have any like role models, or did you have any role models that you saw and you thought like this person, this actor, this role is like a representation of who I am? It's okay if there's not.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because no, I don't know that I see myself fully in anyone specifically. I certainly can admire and vibe with any kind of actor who's using their platform to be an advocate, but I don't know if I've seen my story specifically. Although, do you all know La Borinqueña, the comic book?
No.
It's a Puerto Rican superhero.
That's amazing.
Look it up. And the superhero is like, oh my gosh, it's like is a environmental activist basically, and she's got the coolest crew. And one of the superheroes, her name is Lala Lu when she's like undercover, but she's an Asian Latin superhero, and I see myself in her.
That is so cool.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Right.
All right. Thank you so much. We are going to take a quick break, but be sure to stay tuned.
Welcome back. So, Kim, at any point in your career, did you think about quitting? If so, why?
Yes, I did. So when I was on my last year of my MFA, so I don't know if it's quite career or training. I started later in life. I became pregnant with my first child, and I wouldn't say it's an accident because I think everything happens for a reason. And she's the biggest blessing of my life for so many reasons. Honestly, she saved my life, and we can get into that later or not. But when it's basically like a conservatory, this MFA program. So at the third year, you spend your entire year working on your thesis. Yeah. So I knew I couldn't do half the year, and I didn't know what being pregnant was going to be like. And so I took a leave, and I thought, well, that's the end of it. You know, I already left my career in fashion. I've spent 2 years in this program, and it's a waste. I'm done. But I had this, not just my partner told me I could do it. And I had a mentor in the school who was also a mom, and I had a conversation with her shortly after I left, and she said, "You're going to have to come back next year, otherwise you're never coming back. So you better call the office right now and tell them you're coming back." And I hadn't even given birth at this point. Like, I had no idea what motherhood was going to be like, and I said, okay. And I hung up with her, and then I called the office, and I said, "I'm coming back next year," and then I just did it. But after that, never have I ever wanted to quit. I did want to quit my original career because that wasn't for me, but never have I wanted to quit after that.
Do you think a lot of moms who are into acting kind of have that same situation, or do you think it was like just you? Or
I'm looking at you. I feel like we look similar. Sorry, I didn't mean to stare at Toby. Okay, I'll stop now. Yes, I mean, let's be real, our country in general is not set up for parents to succeed, right?
Yes.
There's not enough like tax benefits. Mothers are expected traditionally to like take care of it all and have a career and do this and this and that. So in any industry, really, we're not set up to win. So especially in the arts, where we're auditioning, we're not paid for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there may not be childcare available, where there may not be health insurance if you don't work at a certain amount, or if you're not in the union. It's really, really, really hard for mothers. Yeah, and where you have to take a break. Like, for example, I couldn't audition for everything when I had a giant belly, right? I'd be like, I wouldn't be believable.
Yeah.
I couldn't hide that. So there's certainly a period where you just can't do certain work. I still did my best to stay creative and worked on other things during both pregnancies, but I would say I was very lucky to be in the position to be able to do that.
Okay, so next question. What would you consider to be your breakout role? Like a role that made you stand out?
My breakout role for me personally that nobody watched, I'm sure, was my first TV role that I booked. And it was small, but I spent a whole week on set. And for me, that was my breakout role. But for anybody else, I'd probably say my most recognizable was Better Nate Than Never. And that was the most glitzy, glamorous one that I had done. And also, I just have to give a quick shout out to the creator, Tim Federle. Man, I don't mean to make anybody feel bad saying any directors, but the best director I've ever worked with, because he was so inclusive and so encouraging, where I knew all of his work already. He does High School Musical, the musical. He wrote the Better Nate books and all that. I got on set just calming myself, being like, "Don't fangirl, keep your cool." And when I got on set, he saw me. He told me I'm such a fan, which that wasn't true. I know that wasn't true, but he could have enjoyed my work. He wasn't a fan of mine. He said things like that to make people feel comfortable. So I know that one day when I'm directing a big Disney film, that's how I'm going to treat everybody too. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why I call that the breakout role, because I think it was one of the most meaningful.
To follow up with that question, what do you think was your favorite role that you have played so far, and why?
Definitely Shirley of Pretty Little Liars. Definitely, because of everything that we're talking about here. Pretty Little Liars does something really cool. It's a horror slasher genre, but they flip the view. It's traditionally we see these horror slasher films from the male gaze, and the camera positions themselves in a way to make the woman less powerful. So what Pretty Little Liars does is they position the camera to make the woman look bigger. Mm-hmm. The whole show is shot from the female gaze, right? It's very cool. We've got a lot of diversity on the show. But what they do purposefully and beautifully is that, my family is queer, and and my daughter's dating a trans boy, and the show and the storyline is not about that. It's just about us being a family and loving each other and figuring out how not to die, But like the representation really matters, and it matters even more when it's done in a way where it's not about what they're doing. It just happens to be a diverse cast.
Yes. Next question. In addition to acting, you have co-founded Colors of Community, a social justice organization. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Yeah. Okay, so we started it in January of 2015. This is when I had taken my leave from my MFA program. I came back the next year, like as mentioned. It wasn't that, and I know all of you know this, you all are more educated than I am with this, but it wasn't that our brown communities were just beginning to be mistreated by law enforcement. It was that it was being publicized, right? And thank goodness for that. But with all that happened in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement, Black Lives Matter movement, and all of the injustices that were really thankfully being put out into the public, Trayvon Martin and all, we felt like there must be something that we could do as theater people. We were all in the same MFA program together. And with the connections and the people that we knew, that we felt like there must be something that we could do using the resources that we had. I was super pregnant. I knew I couldn't be out in the public and oh my gosh, I forgot a word. What's the word when you go out and you...
Rally? Protest?
Protest, thank you.
Okay.
Words. I knew I couldn't be out protesting because I had to pee every 2 minutes, right? So I was like, I was very happy when Kylie Turner and Bobby wanted to do this together, because it was something that I could do as well. And so we gathered some really awesome playwrights, and we had three different sessions. And then afterwards there'd be a talk back with people from all walks of the community. We had like a civil court justice, we had a liaison to a congressman, we had Dominique Morissette had a piece, we had Liza Colon-Zayas, who's in The Bear. We had I'm just name dropping because it's cool. KT Billingsley had a piece called A Man of His Time, and she is a descendant of Supreme Court Justice Taney, who had to do with the Dred Scott decision. And through this piece that premiered as a reading in our Colors of Community, it's continued on, and their families have actually connected and have started to try to build reparations. So it really came from the feeling of desperation, and we said, what can we do with what we have? And that's what we did.
Yeah. What impact do you feel like you've made in the Latino and Asian community, or what do you hope will be the impact you make?
I think that it's not that I think. I know that I know that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing here by using what I've been given to speak openly on this platform that I've been given. I speak a lot about normalizing mental health discussion. I've gone through a lot of therapy. I've gone through a lot of the hardships that I deal with from in everyday life, anxiety. I survived from I'm in remission from an eating disorder. I like to talk about all those things, as well as intergenerational trauma, which a lot of people who have immigrated to this country are first generation, second generation. It comes with a lot of, when you try to acclimate to this country who doesn't accept you.
Yeah.
you know, what that does and what that passes down to your children. So I try to just be really honest about what my family's been through, what I've been through, and hopefully represent and speak out when things are not okay. Like when create art from any sort of injustice.
What advice would you give to other Hispanics and Asians, like for the youth, like growing up, you know, like how you said you've been in like therapy for multiple things? Like what kind of advice would you give them for people who don't necessarily always have access to therapy?
That's a great question. I think that look to your mentors at school, because there's usually some way through school to get some much needed help. Personally, that's how I started. It was when I was in my MFA program. I got free therapy through school. So I would definitely say, like, go to your mentors and try to find the help that way. Never feel like you're alone, even though that's what it feels like when you're going through some sort of mental hardship. And speak up for your peers. Always speak up for your peers, because you never know who the quiet one behind closed doors is feeling after they have a hard day at school or whatever it may be. So if you see an injustice, call it out. You know, like we can't let these bullies. Yeah. And you know, honestly, like I also feel bad for the people who bully, because they're coming from their own. They need help too, right? But like, we just have to keep calling it out and keep doing exactly what you're all doing here right now. I mean, I can't believe you're all doing this at this age. I mean, I just started, I feel like, last year, you know?
Did growing up in a strict household, like, affect you? Like, did you feel like you couldn't talk about your feelings and, like, acting was, like, kind of an escape for you?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because that's exactly what happened. You know, it was a defense mechanism for both of my parents to hold their emotions, because what they went through growing up, I couldn't even imagine. So as a defense mechanism, they closed off, and also as a protection, it was safer to keep everything within the family. And like, why would you talk to a stranger about your problems when you have this, right? And so it definitely had a big impact on me, because I was, as you see, I already cried 10 times here. I'm a very emotional person. And so like to not be able to learn, my parents couldn't teach me the tools of how to articulate my emotions. And I don't blame them for that. And they needed to do that to survive, right? But I needed to emote. And so, yes, dancing, the first thing was dancing. That really helped me to express myself. I used to cry doing lyrical dancing, and my teacher would be like, do what she's doing, feel the music. And I remember thinking, it's just that I'm so sad, you know? But I needed that outlet, and I understand how important the arts are for...
Yes. I was also a dance kid. I also took lyrical, tap, hip-hop.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Yeah, it was definitely something to, like, look forward to, like, every week or so. It was nice.
Yeah, it's like somewhere to put things, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere to put things or express it. Or maybe sometimes it's just like somewhere to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of like musical and like, you know.
You want me to sing? No, just kidding.
I can sing. No, I'm just kidding. But do you have any like favorite musicians that you've seen or you've worked with?
Well, I mean, I love Ruby Wood, who's in Better Date, just because I think he's like the most wonderful human in the world. That I've worked with. Oh, like Lea Salonga, my wife in Pretty Little Liars, is talk about kismet. My husband's family, and like I mentioned, my mother-in-law, who we lost recently, she was a big Les Mis fan. And so my husband and his sisters grew up singing Les Mis. Yes. He belts Eponine, and I'm like, okay. It's actually pretty good. I don't tell him that, though. You know, she was in Les Mis. I mean, she was in Saigon. She was in all of these things, right? So my mother-in-law knew that I was working with her before she passed, and that was a really, really, really beautiful thing. So I'm just gonna say Lea and leave it at that, because I don't know more superstar than Lea Salonga. So. Mm-hmm.
All right, next question, and our final question. Well, not our final. I know. Okay. What is the biggest piece of advice you can give us?
Okay. I would say, listen to that voice, whatever it is that it's saying. You're right. whatever it is, whatever it's telling you to do. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about, I mean, you know, if your parents think otherwise, you know, respect them, sure, but like if there's something that's inside that's telling you you want to do this, and not necessarily in the arts, whatever it may be, listen to that, because that's the gift you've been given. You've been given a gift to help make the world a better place, so listen to that voice. And I would also say, if it seems overwhelming to get to that ultimate goal, just take little baby steps. Because if you're like, okay, I want to be the president of the United States, holy moly, how? Just like, what's the next step you could take? What's the next tiny little step? That's foreseeable and doable. Take that little baby step. And you can also do more than one thing. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself. You can have big dreams. I'm not just an actor. I have other things that I do as well, that I'm very passionate about. And just, you know what you can do. And I think you can do it too.